They say life is what you make it, but that's only half the truth, because the other half is darker, more dangerous. Life is what you allow it to be. If you don't take command of your mind, something else will. Distraction, doubt, delay, the noise of a world addicted to mediocrity. You were not born to drift like a leaf in the wind, tossed by circumstance and convenience. You were born to dominate your destiny. But to do that, you must first win the war within. Understand this now. The world does not bend to your wishes. It bends to your will. And willpower is not born. It is forged. In silence, in struggle, in solitude. Every titan you admire, every name etched into history, every dreamer who reshaped reality, they all began at war with themselves. Carnegie did not inherit steel in his blood. He commanded his thoughts and transformed vision into empires. Edison failed 10,000 times, not because he was lucky, but because he refused to let failure define him. Lincoln was born in poverty, buried 2 sons, faced defeat after defeat, yet he stood unshaken because he governed his mind like a general commands an army. So ask yourself now, who commands your mind? Is it you, or is it fear? Is it you, or is it the voice of every failure you've suffered, every insult you've believed, every story of not good enough you've repeated until it became gospel? The mind is not just where you think, it's where you build. And like any structure, it can either stand on foundation or collapse under pressure. Most people are walking ruins, broken by opinions, shackled by circumstances, buried under years of mental clutter, but not you. Because the moment you decide to command your mind, the moment you make the decision to lead yourself, to master your thoughts, instead of letting them master you, the world changes, not magically, but fundamentally. You stop looking for signs, and you become one. You stop waiting for opportunity, and you build it. You stop blaming circumstance, and you start carving destiny, like a sculptor carves truth from stone. But make no mistake, this is not easy. It is not safe. It is not normal. Normal minds do not build extraordinary lives. They settle, they shrink, they survive. To command your mind is to go to war against the inertia of average. It is to fight the temptation of excuses and the seduction of comfort. It is to burn the bridges of doubt and plant your flag in the soil of certainty, even when the world calls you mad for doing it. Because clarity is not given, it is demanded. You do not find your purpose scrolling through social media or waiting for the stars to align. You define it, you declare it, you demand it from yourself. This is what separates the builders from the beggars, the creators from the consumers. Most people don't want truth. They want relief. They want motivation to feel better about staying the same. But this is not that. This is the sound of your awakening. This is the moment you take the throne of your own mind, not with arrogance, but with responsibility, not with ego, but with vision. And vision, real vision, is not just what you see with your eyes. It's what you decide to see when everything in front of you tells you to quit. When Elon Musk was laughed out of boardrooms for his SpaceX ambitions, he didn't shrink, he expanded. When Walt Disney was told he lacked imagination, he doubled down on his dream until it swallowed cities whole. When Steve Jobs was fired from his own company, he didn't beg for approval. He rebuilt himself into a storm that would revolutionize everything. And why? Because they understood this truth. You do not get what you want, you get what you are, and what you are is the sum of what you think about most. If your mind is cluttered with fear, you will build a life of hesitation. If your mind is ruled by doubt, you will construct walls where doors should be. But if your mind is a furnace of purpose, if it is disciplined, focused, resilient, you will become unstoppable. The mind is like a garden, left unattended. Weeds will grow, but tended daily. Through discipline, through learning, through intention, it becomes a place of strength, of peace, of power. So what will you plant? Will you plant stories of limitation or seeds of liberation? Will you water the past or nourish the future? Will you let the world write your script, or will you take the pen and become the author of your becoming? You were not made for the sidelines. You were made to shape history with the weight of your conviction. But the first battle is always within. If you win there, if you conquer the chaos in your own mind, the whole world outside has no choice but to follow. not because it owes you anything, but because when you become a person of purpose, the universe moves. And now, we move forward, from belief to discipline, from vision to command. But belief without discipline is a castle built on sand. You can have the grandest vision, you can imagine the life, see the wealth, feel the success, but if you cannot command yourself when the fire burns low and the crowd has gone quiet, you will crumble under the weight of your own potential. Discipline is the bridge between mind and manifestation. It is not glamorous. It is not Instagram worthy. It is the daily act of war against the lesser version of yourself. It is saying no when every part of you wants comfort. It is rising at dawn when your dreams are still whispers in the dark, and grinding through the fog of doubt until the sun breaks over your soul like a revelation. The world does not care about your feelings. The world rewards those who show up again and again and again, regardless of how they feel. That's the truth they never taught you in school. That's the truth most won't tell you in soft-tone seminars. Discipline is the fire you light when motivation dies. It is the muscle you forge when everything in you wants to stay soft. It is the art of doing what must be done, especially when you don't want to do it. That's what separates the fleeting from the eternal. Think of a great tree, majestic, unshakable, but beneath it, roots, deep, disciplined roots, holding it firm through every storm. Your mind must grow roots. Habits are your roots. Routines are your roots. Standards, non-negotiable, immovable. These are the anchors of an unbreakable mind. Do not wait for permission. Do not wait for the right time. There is no savior coming. There is only the mirror and your decision to own what stares back. And when discipline becomes your nature, you will no longer chase success. It will chase you, not because the world has changed, but because you have. The person who masters discipline becomes untouchable, because they are not ruled by mood. They are not swayed by noise. They are led by principle. They are driven by command. But what fuels discipline? It is not punishment. It is not shame. It is purpose. Purpose is the fire that never sleeps. It is what wakes you up when everyone else hits snooze. It is what drives you to keep building, keep striving, keep rising, even when the results don't come, even when the applause is silent. Purpose is what makes pain meaningful, what turns sacrifice into sacred ground. Without purpose, your discipline is a prison. With it, it is freedom. Look at any giant who changed history and you will find behind their unrelenting discipline a burning why. Martin Luther King Jr. did not march out of convenience. He marched with purpose so powerful it outlived bullets. Malala Yousafzai didn't raise her voice because it was safe. She did it because her purpose was greater than fear. Mandela didn't survive 27 years in prison by accident. He endured because his why was carved deeper than the pain. Purpose is not about what you do. It's about why you must. It's not a job. It's a calling. And that calling whispers to you now, not when you feel ready, not when life makes sense, now in this very moment, in this very breath. But to hear it, you must silence the world. Disconnect from the noise. Step out of the algorithm and into the raw silence of your own mind. That silence is not emptiness. It is revelation. You were not born for accident. You were not put here to clock in and zone out. You are here to build, to lead, to move mountains. Not just with action, but with intention. That is purpose. And when you have it, when your life becomes driven by something deeper than pleasure or recognition, you become dangerous. Not to others, but to the system that depends on you being mediocre. You become immune to distraction. You become allergic to excuses. You become a weapon, not of destruction, but of direction. Because nothing can stop a mind on fire, but fire needs fuel. And that fuel is action, not overthinking, not planning forever, not waiting for every light to turn green before you leave the driveway. Action, relentless, imperfect, courageous action. Do you think Ford waited until he had approval? Do you think Tesla sat in fear of the critics? Do you think Oprah built an empire by waiting for consensus? No. They moved, they acted, they fell, and they got up faster than the world could mock them, because success does not belong to the brilliant. It belongs to the bold. You can read every book, study every strategy, pray, journal, meditate, but if you do not move, you will die with your music still in you. Action is the proof of belief. Action is what separates those who dream from those who dare. And here's the truth. No one wants to say out loud. No one is coming to save you. No one owes you anything. No one will hand you your dream. It is earned. It is demanded. It is wrestled from the hands of resistance by those willing to act when it's uncomfortable, uncertain, inconvenient. You are not entitled to success, but you are entitled to the opportunity to become the kind of person who commands it. That's what this is about. Not chasing success, but becoming someone who attracts it like gravity attracts planets. When you command your mind, discipline follows. When discipline rules, action flows. And when action becomes a way of life, you don't rise occasionally. You rise inevitably. Not every day will feel powerful. Not every step will be graceful. But every move made in purpose is another crack in the wall of limitation, until one day you realize the wall was never real. It was made of fear, doubt, and stories that never belonged to you. Now you're writing a new story, one built with intention, fueled by fire, driven by command. And if you keep moving forward, something sacred begins to shift. You no longer live in reaction, you move with deliberation. You no longer ask the world for permission, you carve your space into it like a sculptor chiseling truth from marble. Every action becomes sacred, every step intentional. You're no longer pulled by the chaos of circumstance, but driven by a compass that points inward before it ever looks outward. But here's the truth. Few dare to confront clarity is not found in stillness, it's found in motion. Most people wait for clarity before they begin, but clarity comes from beginning. You build it by showing up day after day, covered in sweat, dust, and doubt. You earn it when you stop overanalyzing and start doing. When your hands are dirty and your mind is focused and your heart is pounding not from anxiety but from conviction. Clarity isn't a beam of light descending from the heavens. It's a whisper that grows louder with every act of courage. It's found in failure, in trial, in the grind, in those moments when you want to quit but don't. It's in the journal entries written at 3 a.m. when the world is quiet and your soul is loud. It's in the discomfort of growth, where your identity is shedding its skin and something greater is taking shape. And in that clarity, something else is born, resilience. Resilience is not the absence of pain. It's the refusal to be owned by it. It's what keeps you upright when life hits harder than you ever imagined. It's what lets you take the punch and keep moving. You think greatness comes easy? You think becoming who you were born to be doesn't cost something? Try again. You will fail. You will be misunderstood. You will lose people. You will lose money. You will lose yourself at times. But you will find something greater. You will find your power, because every time you break and rebuild, you become more dangerous to the version of you that once settled for less. Every scar becomes a page in your legend. Every setback becomes a stepping stone. This is not a movie. There is no background music, no script, no perfect lighting, no audience. Just you, the grind, and the decision, daily to rise again. That's resilience. It's the mother who works 3 jobs to keep the lights on. It's the entrepreneur who hears no 1,000 times and still shows up with a plan. It's the athlete who trains in silence, far from the cameras, hungry to master the craft no one else is willing to suffer for. It's the human being who refuses to let circumstance define them, who looks at adversity and says, I will not bow. You don't need more comfort. You need more clarity. You don't need more time. You need more truth. And here's a hard one. Sometimes you are the one creating your own resistance. Sometimes the voice holding you back is yours. And that's where the deepest work begins. Not on the outside, not in the hustle, but in the silence. You must learn to interrogate your beliefs like a warrior cleans his blade, ruthlessly. Cut through every lie that says you're not enough. Slice away every inherited limitation that doesn't belong to you. Burn the blueprint that was written by fear and start over, line by line in the ink of ownership, because the stories you believe become the life you live. You think you can't, you won't. You think you're too late, you are. You think success is for others, it will be. But if you start to speak differently, Not just out loud, but within, the world begins to bend. I will. I can. I must. These are not affirmations. They are declarations of war against the average. Your mind listens. It is always listening. And when you command it with intention, it starts to transform. No longer ruled by impulse, no longer a slave to emotion, but an engine of clarity, discipline, and impact. And now we step into the most powerful gear of all, adaptability, because life will change, plans will collapse, people will leave, markets will crash, jobs will disappear, tragedy will knock when you least expect it. But adaptability is the trait of titans. The oak tree is strong but snaps in a storm. The reed bends and survives. The most powerful people are not the ones who never fall. They are the ones who bend, evolve, and come back stronger every time. Thomas Edison didn't give the world the light bulb because he had perfect conditions. He gave it because he adapted after 10,000 failures. Abraham Lincoln didn't lead through peace. He adapted in war, in politics, in grief, and in ridicule. Nelson Mandela came out of a prison cell with more strength, more vision, and more adaptability than many of us have with freedom in our hands. Adaptability is your superpower. When the path is blocked, you don't retreat, you pivot. When the door is closed, you don't complain, you build a new one. When life says no, you don't fold, you rewrite the rules. This is the edge. Adaptability doesn't mean weakness, it means wisdom. It means you've stopped tying your identity to one outcome, because your mission is bigger than any method. You are not the plan, you are the principle behind it. And when your principles are clear, growth, purpose, discipline, integrity, the method becomes flexible. You stop fearing change. You start demanding it. You become liquid steel, strong yet fluid, capable of flowing around obstacles, slipping through cracks, and reforming on the other side sharper than before. Because nothing can stop a mind that knows how to evolve. And now the final element awakens: gratitude. Gratitude is not weakness. It's not softness. It's not blind optimism. It's a warrior's secret weapon. Because when you learn to be grateful for the battle, grateful for the grind, grateful for the pain that shaped you, you are no longer chained by anger. You are no longer poisoned by envy. You are free because you have perspective. Gratitude turns every setback into a lesson. It turns delay into development. It turns lack into legacy. It doesn't mean you settle. It means you honor what you have while building what you want. That's power. That's command. Gratitude is the lens that reveals abundance, even in the absence of comfort. It is the discipline of focus, the art of attention, because what you focus on, you fuel, and what you fuel, you multiply. When you wake up and give thanks for the challenge, not because it's easy, but because it's forging you, you no longer resist life, you rise with it. You stop being a victim of what happens, and you become a student of it. You learn, you adapt, you command. This is what they don't teach you in schools and boardrooms, that gratitude, true gratitude, is a form of dominance. It's how you take control of your state, how you anchor in storms, how you remind yourself that you are still here, still breathing, still capable, still in the fight. Because gratitude and ambition are not opposites, they are allies. Gratitude roots you while ambition elevates you. One grounds your soul, the other ignites your spirit. And when they work in harmony, you become unshakable. But to sustain this power, to live in command, not just touch it in flashes, you must become a relentless learner, not just of facts, not just of hacks, but of self, of process, of principles. Because a mind that is not learning is a mind that is dying. Every day you either evolve or erode. There is no standing still. Stagnation is decay wearing a mask. You must feed your mind like a furnace. Books, conversations, challenges, silence. Feed it with quality, or it will default to quantity. And the world will gladly hand you noise if you do not intentionally pursue truth. Carnegie read with the hunger of a man at war with ignorance. Einstein questioned every assumption until reality had no choice but to bend. Da Vinci filled notebooks with experiments and philosophies long before the world caught up. They were not just men of action, they were students of existence. Learning is not weakness, it is strength. It is not a sign that you are behind. It is proof that you are growing. The moment you think you know enough is the moment you begin to rot. And when you combine learning with gratitude, purpose with adaptability, discipline with vision, you become more than a person. You become a force that reshapes every room you enter, not by volume, not by bravado, but by the presence of someone who knows exactly who they are and why they move. You become the calm in chaos, the clarity in confusion, the fire in cold places, and yet this force must be protected, because the world will always try to reclaim your mind, to drag it back into fear, to convince you to play small, to seduce you with comfort and call it happiness. That's why your mind must become a fortress, not walled off in ignorance, but fortified with principle, reinforced with values, guarded by focus. You do not let just anyone speak into your life. You do not let the brokenness of others become the blueprint of your self-worth. You do not let the culture of distraction replace the discipline of creation. You choose what enters. You choose what stays. You choose you. This is what command looks like. It is not loud. It is not boastful. It is not performed. It is a quiet, relentless power, a decision every single day to own your time, your thoughts, your story, a refusal to outsource responsibility for your results, a rejection of mediocrity, a rebellion against the inner voice that says settle. This isn't motivation. This is war. The war between who you were told to be and who you truly are. And this war, it never ends. It evolves. As you grow, so do your battles. As you rise, so do your stakes. The higher you climb, the stronger the winds. But you don't climb for safety. You climb because the view from the top is a mirror, and in that mirror you don't see a perfect person. You see someone who chose command over chaos, who built clarity from confusion, who sculpted greatness from grit, someone who realized that the mind is not a cage, it's a throne, but only if you claim it. And now we reach the edge, the cliff between the old and the new, between being ruled by circumstance and rising into command. It begins now. Not tomorrow, not next year. Now, command your thoughts, or they will command you. Command your standards, or the world will hand you mediocrity. Command your story, or your past will write your future. Because if you don't lead your mind, someone else will. If you don't take the throne, you will be ruled by fear disguised as logic, by doubt masquerading as realism, by society's expectations dressed as your own. But not anymore. No more shrinking to fit places you've outgrown. No more editing your dreams to be more palatable for others. No more pretending you are powerless when you were born to build empires, even if that empire begins with nothing more than a journal, a breath, and a burning will. Command is not a moment. It is a way of life. It is how you speak to yourself, how you respond to pressure, how you choose to rise again and again and again. Even when it's dark, especially when it's dark, because the darkness doesn't mean you're lost. It means you're about to discover light that isn't borrowed from anyone else. And when you do, when you truly see what's possible, when you feel the strength that's always been there, when you stop waiting to be saved and start becoming your own fire, you don't just change your life, you change the world. Because people don't follow noise, they follow signal. And the clearest signal a human can emit is a life lived in total mental command. So breathe in, feel the weight of your past, thank it, release it, and rise. You have nothing to prove. You only have something to become. Now go, not with fear, but with fire. Command your mind, or be a slave to circumstance. Your move. There is a moment, after the storm has passed, after the fight has been fought, after the dust of resistance settles, when silence no longer feels like emptiness. It feels like power. It's the silence of presence, the kind only earned by those who faced the noise within and came out the other side clear, clear in vision, clear in identity, clear in purpose. That's the gift of command. It doesn't just make you effective, it makes you awake. Awake to the lies you've inherited. Awake to the strength you've denied. Awake to the life that's been waiting for you to stop negotiating with fear and start owning the battlefield. Because that's what life is. A battlefield of choices. You either retreat or advance. either react or respond. You are either a product of chance or a product of choice, and choice is where power lives. Not in the conditions, not in the past, not in the luck of birth or the permission of others. It lives in the moment you decide to rise, decide to begin, decide to stop waiting for clarity and start building it with your bare hands. Decide to become the architect of your reality, not just a tenant of it. You do not need permission to lead your own life. You do not need consensus to become uncommon. You do not need the stars to align when your mind already has. And when you finally step into that decision, when you take that breath and look your excuses in the eye and say, I'm done being ruled by anything but purpose, everything changes. Not because life gets easier, but because you get stronger. This is not a pep talk. It's a transfer of responsibility. You've heard the truth now. You've seen what's possible. You've tasted the idea that the mind once commanded becomes the most powerful tool in existence. Now it's yours to wield. Wield it like a blade. Cut through the noise. Cut through the fear. Cut through every watered-down version of yourself you've been taught to accept. Use it like fire. Not just to burn, but to illuminate. Let it light the path for others still caught in the fog. Let your life be proof that the past is not prophecy. It's raw material. Raw material you've been called to shape, to mold, to forge. Not for applause, not for validation, but because somewhere deep inside you know this isn't all random. You know you were built for more than cycles of doubt and distraction. You know there's a voice inside, older than fear, stronger than failure. And that voice is whispering, it's time. Time to cut the leash. Time to drop the mask. Time to stop rehearsing your pain and start expressing your power. Because this isn't about becoming something else. It's about becoming what you always were, before the world buried it under labels, scars and survival. It's about remembering. Remembering that discipline is not a punishment. It's a portal. That purpose is not found. It's chosen. That clarity is not stumbled upon. It's earned. And belief. Belief is not something you wait for. It's something you build, brick by brick. With every morning you show up, with every lie you dismantle, with every standard you raise. Belief is the fire behind the eyes of those who refuse to quit, behind the entrepreneurs who lost everything and started again, behind the artists who poured their soul into the canvas with no promise of reward, behind every man and woman who stood alone, misunderstood, and said, I will not fold. That belief doesn't come from the outside. It's not inherited. It's not taught. It's forged. And when you forge it, when it becomes bone-deep, blood-wired belief, it becomes bulletproof. Not because you'll never be hit, but because you'll never be broken. That's what command gives you. Not immunity from struggle, but immunity from surrender. And in the end, that's the only immunity that matters. Because the storms will come. The critics will come. The doubt will whisper. The old patterns will knock on your door dressed as comfort. But the difference is you won't answer anymore. You'll recognize them for what they are. Old ghosts from a life you've outgrown. And instead of listening, you'll lead. Instead of shrinking, you'll stand. Not for image, not for ego, but because you made a choice, long ago or maybe just now, that you were done outsourcing your destiny. You've reclaimed the only real power there is, the power to command your mind, and now you walk differently. Not because everything is fixed, but because now you're the one holding the compass. Now you're the one steering the ship. Now you know storms don't scare captains who've mastered the wheel. You are that captain. This is your vessel, and the ocean is vast, but it's yours to cross. So stand tall, set your eyes forward, feel the silence in your gut, the fire in your bones, and move. One step, one choice, one command at a time, not because it's easy, but because it's who you are. You are not a slave to circumstance. You are the commander of your fate, the leader of your mind, the architect of a life designed, not defaulted. So live like it, lead like it, love like it, create like it, because once the mind is commanded, the world has no choice but to follow. And when the world follows, when your external begins to mirror the internal shift, you'll understand something sacred, that everything they told you to chase, the money, the titles, the applause, the image, was just a shadow of something deeper, alignment, when your thoughts, your actions, your purpose, and your principles align, you no longer chase, you attract, you no longer beg, you build, you no longer strive blindly, you strike precisely. Alignment is when your inner world is so rooted, so grounded in truth, that no outer storm can pull you off course. It's when your words echo your values, when your actions enforce your beliefs, when your daily habits are in rhythm with your deepest vision. Most people never taste this. They live scattered, fractured, pieces of themselves pulled in 100 directions. They become actors in lives they never chose, reciting lines they never wrote, seeking approval from crowds that never mattered. But not you, not now. Because command means coherence. It means you've unified the warring factions inside you, the fear, the ambition, the insecurity, the hunger, and turned them into soldiers marching in one direction, not toward perfection, but toward truth. You stop hiding the parts of yourself that feel inconvenient. You stop cutting off your boldness to fit in with the comfortable. You stop asking for permission to be whole, because you were not born to be part-time powerful. You were born to be dangerous to every limitation you inherited, to be a threat to every average life you once considered, to be a walking contradiction to the lie that says you must choose between success and soul. And once you've seen the truth, once you've tasted the life that comes from commanding your mind, you can't unsee it. You can't go back to distraction and blame. You can't go back to living like your power is outside of you. You can't go back to sleep, because your standard has changed. Not the standard for others, the standard for yourself. How you speak, how you think, how you carry your pain, how you handle success, how you show up when no one's watching. That's the real transformation. When excellence becomes the minimum, not the exception. And in that space you realize something profound. You're not here just to win. You're here to build a legacy. Legacy is not a statue. It's not a bank account. It's not a name etched in stone. Legacy is the way you shape reality, the way your energy ripples through every interaction, the way people feel more alive just from being near your fire. It's the way you love with presence, the way you work with intention, the way you create with soul, the way you lead with vision, and most of all, it's the way you pass the torch, not just to your children or your team, but to the world. Because a person in command of their mind doesn't just build for themselves, they build for generations. You plant trees you'll never sit under.
Yes.
You write songs others will sing. You lay bricks others will build upon. Because impact, real impact, is not about being known. It's about being felt. It's about becoming the kind of presence that echoes beyond the room, beyond the year, beyond the lifetime. But it all begins here, with the one thing no one can take from you, your decision. Your decision to rise, to wake up, to break the cycle, to stop numbing, stop hiding, stop explaining yourself to people who were never meant to understand you. This is your life, your mission, your mountain.
Golf.
You don't owe anyone an apology for climbing it.
Golf.
You don't need to be less intense, less passionate, less awake. Turn up the volume, lean into the edge, let the fire speak. And if it burns some bridges, let them burn. If it burns your old identity, good. If it burns the comfort of staying small, even better. Because what's rising from those ashes is you. Not the diluted version, not the digestible version, not the programmed version, but the unfiltered, undiluted, awakened version. The version that walks into rooms and doesn't shrink. The version that wakes up with purpose, not panic. The version that leads, not pleads. That commands, not reacts. That creates, not conforms. This is not hype. This is not hype.
Dose.
This is a call to arms, a spiritual uprising against everything in you that once accepted less than you were born to become. And maybe no one around you understands it yet. Maybe they still see you as who you were. That's okay. Your job is not to convince them. Your job is to become undeniable. Let your consistency be your answer. Let your peace be your presence. Let your results speak so loudly they have no choice but to recalibrate their perception. Because there will come a day, sooner than you think, when they'll ask, how did you do it? How did you rise? How did you go from overlooked to unstoppable? And you will smile, not with arrogance but with clarity. And you'll say, I stopped waiting. I stopped explaining. I stopped living like my mind was an open door for fear to walk through. I learned to command it, to train it, to own it, and once I did, everything else obeyed, because that's the law. As within, so without. As you think, so you become. As you command, so you create. And now we arrive, the summit, not the end, but the beginning of everything that matters, the threshold of the life that's been calling you in whispers and storms, and you, standing at the edge, breath slow, mind steady, heart on fire, not because you've reached perfection, but because you've remembered power, because you've remembered that this mind of yours, this wild, brilliant, untamed force, is not your enemy. It is your empire. It is your battleground. It is your birthplace of destiny. It is the origin point of every reality you've ever known, and every future you dare to build. So you no longer plead for change. You command it. You no longer wait for motivation. You move with conviction. You no longer bow to fear. You walk with fire. You now understand. The world is not something to survive. It is something to sculpt. Because life will give you exactly what you believe you deserve. No more, no less. And belief is no longer a question. It is a weapon, sharpened with intention, tempered with discipline, forged in the flames of your former self. And when you speak now, the universe listens, not because of volume, but because of certainty. Because the mind in command is the voice of the mountain. It does not beg, it declares. It does not fear time, it bends time. It does not chase success, it magnetizes it. Because you've realized that the secret is not in some external formula. It was never in the books alone, the podcasts, the gurus, the hacks. The secret was always you, and the decision you make every single moment, to command or to be commanded, to lead your mind into truth or follow it into illusion, to speak life into your vision or death into your potential. And now there's no turning back. The mirror is cracked, the illusion is dead, and what stands in its place is you, unmasked, unchained, uncompromised. So let them watch, let them doubt, let them misunderstand, let them gossip, scroll, compare, and sleepwalk. You are no longer available for mediocrity, no longer in a relationship with fear, no longer subscribing to the gospel of limitation. You are done waiting for someday. Someday is a lie, someday is a thief, someday is the religion of the small. And you've been called to greatness, not because it's easy, not because it's glamorous, but because it's the only life that makes your soul breathe. This isn't just a mindset shift. This is a soul retrieval. This is every broken piece of you coming home, every buried gift resurfacing, every ounce of your forgotten power rising like a tidal wave. And when you move now, the ground responds. Because the world doesn't change when people get lucky. It changes when people wake up. And now you are awake. Now you are clear. Now you are dangerous. To fear, to doubt, to the false identities that once imprisoned you. So step forward, with vision, with fire, with breath that carries purpose, with silence that holds strength, with steps that shake the ground. This is your life, no one else's. This is your chance, this moment, right now, always now. And when the voices return, and they will, when the resistance creeps back in, whispering comfort, shame, guilt, compromise, you'll smile. Not because you're unaffected, but because you're prepared, because you've trained for this, because your mind is no longer a passenger, it is the commander. And commanders don't flinch, commanders don't crumble, commanders don't surrender to ghosts of who they used to be. They stand, they move, they lead, they become. So rise now, not tomorrow, not next week, now. Command your mind, or be a slave to circumstance. Your life begins the moment you choose, and that moment is here.